All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Lightyear Frontier. This is an early access game on Steam. It's also available on console, and it is a cozy farming game, but with the twist that you are in a mech. And today we're going to be starting a new game and moving through the first part of the game, taking a first look at it, and looking through the early stages of the game. This is intended to be a combination of a let's play slash a tutorial series. So we're going to be explaining what we do as we go and talking through how to sort of optimize your gameplay in order to make easy progress and really equip you to play the game how you want to play. So we're going to start off a new game, and we are going to go ahead and name our planet and then jump on in. Now, the plot of this game is that you are being sent to the Lightyear Frontier, which is a collection of colonies that have been out of contact for a while and are missing and are running out of food. They are in dire straits, and our job is to establish a farm world that will provide for them. So we fly out on our ship with our tractor mech that will give us everything we need to get started, and we will establish our farm and provide for the other colonies. Now, the provision for the other colonies is going to be done by shipping various crops to them, and so progression is actually tied to farming, although there are several other aspects of the game. There's quite a bit of exploration, which is tremendously well done. Like, I would say that the exploration in this game is on par with like Breath of the Wild, with how rewarding it feels and how addictive it is. You know, it's great. There's not quite as much to see, obviously, because that's just a sort of a different class of game, but you get those same sorts of vibes from it. So I'm really been enjoying that part of the game. There's also animals. You have the freedom to build your farm, to look however you like, and all of that. But it looks like we're off to a bad start. Our ship has crashed, and we are waking up outside of our mech. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, as we wake up and take a look around at our surroundings, our first step is going to be to find our mech, which fortunately appears like it has crashed directly in front of us. And once we find it, we are tasked with repairing it, because it looks like one of the legs on our mech is damaged. So we can use our repair gun to activate that leg, and once that's fully repaired, we can go ahead and stand up our mech and climb inside. Now, the graphics and sound design in this game are excellent as well. It's something they've done a really good job of. It sounds good, it feels good, and the act of using the mech to farm is fantastic. So I think we're in a great place. Now, our first mission, now that we're in our mech, is to find our ship, which is going to be down just across this river. Before we do that, though, we're going to take a short detour, and this is a little bit of a trick that I've learned. Is off here to the left, inside of this dense forest, we can find a crop called carrots, and we want to find just a few carrots to start so that we can start working with them straight away. Now, these are going to be a small orange plant that is going to be found close to the ground, and they are found in these dense forests. Wherever you have a dense forest like this, you can find carrots, and we should be able to find some somewhere in here. I see some right over here. It looks like coming over here to this water is the best way to find those, because there's some. And now the spawn locations of crops is the same in every game, so these will always be there in your game as well as in this one. There are also some other crops here. These blue ones are called polyberries and are another excellent one for us to grab a few of, although these are very common. We'll find a lot of these as we go, so we don't want to take too much time. Now, the other thing I like to do is actually take my time playing the game, and one of the things for that is if we go into settings, we can go ahead and change some of the features. So I'm going to go ahead and double the day length, change it to 2. I'm also going to reduce my fuel consumption by half, as well as my mech damage taken. I find that the mech damage and fuel mechanics are a little more tedious, so I reduce those because I don't want them completely gone, but being able to sort of put them a little bit further out of mind makes the game more enjoyable to me. So those are the settings I prefer to play with. If you leave them sort of at maximum, all you need to do is make sure you have a little bit more fuel, and you'll need to gather some additional resources to produce that. And with the damage, again, you'll have to craft some more repair kits, because you will inevitably take some damage just from walking into things or falling or accidentally stepping into deep water, or there are some dangerous critters about. All right, now that we found those crops, let's go ahead and head over to our Mech ship, which will give us access to our next couple. And then we are going to go on another bit of an adventure to find a perfect place to build our farm. So we'll go ahead and take the items out of the Mech ship, and then press B to go into our build menu and middle click to recycle. We'll recycle the Mech ship to gather up the resources. Now this gives us the task of setting up a farm center, which we can do anywhere. And this area here is not a bad place. It's a little bit cramped is why I don't like being here. It's also a little ways from some more advanced materials. So I'm going to go a little bit further afield and find a place that I think is a little bit better. Although I have played through a game with the farm, my first farm right here, and it was absolutely no trouble at all. This river is actually a really great resource, and so it's not a bad idea to stick close to it. But we're going to go a little bit further afield because there's a few resources we want to gather along the way, and there's a spot that I like just a bit better for setting up my first farm. Now, you will have the opportunity to set up multiple farms later. This is really cool if you're playing in multiplayer and you want to have different people doing different things in different parts of the map. And there are several places around the map that are highly functional for a first farm. They've got all the resources you're going to need for your sort of normal day-to-day being. We're going to go ahead and head up this hill. If we take a look at the map, you can see that as the river goes east, there's a little sort of path up this hill, and we're going to stop up on this plateau right there. There's a rare crop that we want to pick up on our way. So we'll head up this hill all the way up to the top of the plateau. And as we go, we're going to look for these small crystals. These are called refillite, and they are a fuel for our mech. They respawn, and they seem to spawn fairly randomly, but if we can find enough of them, then it should take care of our fuel needs for quite a while, especially with the reduced fuel consumption. Now up here in this field, you'll see these floating spike balls. Those are actually enemies, and we're going to want to watch out for them. If we do get too close to one of them, it'll start floating towards us, and we can sort of hit it with our spike punch to push it away. It's also a great way to do a little bit of forestry. But these crops here, chromes, is what I was looking for. And this is something that's normally going to be found much later on in the game in a much more advanced area. But I wanted to find some right now because it's a great start for us. And we're going to head back down to the river and follow it further up the hill to gather up a few more crops on our way to where we want to set down our farm. By gathering up all these crops early, it's going to make progression through the early parts of the game really fast and easy. So let's head down to the river, and we're just going to follow it upstream until we find our next couple of crops. Now, as we go, we're going to make note of what the various resource deposits look like. There's tin here, which is these sort of small round cylinders. There's copper, which has these more plate-like appearances. And there's a few other metals and resources that we will find as well. It's not a bad idea to pick up a bit of copper as well as stone and wood at this point, but there will be plenty of that where we are going next. So we can just sort of pick that up if it's convenient, but we don't really need to stress about it. Now, as we walk along the river, we're going to find another crop for us, and that's rabbage. Rabbage grows along rivers, and so there are a few that cross the map, and as you go, you'll be able to find more of these crops, which you can then turn into seeds and propagate in your own fields, but it always helps be able to pick up a few as you go about. So as we walk along the river, we're going to be watching both banks in order to make sure that we pick up as many crops as we can, because the larger our starting stockpile is, the better luck we'll have. We'll also keep an eye out for those refillite clusters and crystals, because those will also help us. Now, the water in the middle of the river can be too deep for our mech, and we want to avoid going into too deep water. It's not the end of the world if you do. We can demonstrate that here. If we accidentally walk into a spot that's a little bit too deep, then we get an emergency protocol message. And if we come out, we're back where we sort of walked into the water and our mech has taken some damage. But otherwise, nothing really happens. And you can hold the spacebar or your jump button to hover across the river to cross back and forth as you need to. Now, as we travel upriver, we're going to enter a part of the map called Frost Peak Ridge. This is a second biome, and the different biomes contain different crops. One of the crops that we're looking for in Frost Peak Ridge, I see a little bit of here. It's called honey bottle, and we can go ahead and pick that up straight away right here. 1, 2, and 3. Again, we'll keep an eye out for honey bottle as we travel through Frost Peak Ridge. We'll also be able to continue finding rabbages, which we have some right over here, as well as polyberries and any other crops we find. There is one more crop I want to find before we head down to set up our farm, though. Let's go ahead and carry on up the river a bit further. And as we go, we'll keep an eye out for these spike balls and make sure we push them away. If they explode too close to us, they will damage our mech, and we want to avoid unnecessary damage. And it's not the end of the world if we take a bit, but it's best if we can avoid it. Now, as we travel up into the mountains, you'll start to see some new resources coming up. This is iron. It's very heavy. It's hard to carry very much of it, so we're going to ignore it for now because it's not very beneficial to us. Looks like we have another honey bottle right up on this hill, and this hill is actually one of the... So let's pop up here and grab this. And then if we take a look at this part of this map where this snow sort of moves on up, this is one of the places where we can find the last crop we were looking for. It's going to be all throughout this part of the map. If we follow the river, we'll find quite a bit of it along the river as well. We're just going to be grabbing a little bit, and I can see it right up here at the top of this hill. So let's head on up and grab that. All right, and we found 5 of those blossoms. All right, having found that lumbloom, we can head back down the hill. There is some more lumbloom up on this hill, but that's going to be taking us in the wrong direction, and I'm not really keen on that just yet. So we're going to head back down and carry on a little deeper into the Frost Peak Ridge before we head back down to the outset plains to set up our farm. Now, I mentioned that there are going to be some places that are better suited for establishing a farm. You can really build anywhere on the map. It's just a question of how far you're going to have to go for some basic resources. You can get wood anywhere that there's trees, although pine trees actually provide a different kind of wood. They provide softwood, which is not quite as good for the early base building part of the game. Looks like we have a little bit more rabbage over on the other side of the river here. So we'll continue picking those up. All right, now we've reached sort of our destination. Is going to be this arch here. Like if we look at the map, we can see where we're at. And we're going to need to cross the river. So let's go past this sort of deeper spot here up to this more shallow area. And, yes, there. All right, perfect. And we'll cross the river here. And right in here, we're going to start finding more lumbloom. And we want to gather as much as we reasonably can. And of course, we shorted the jump just a little bit. That's okay. Re-enter our mech here. And go ahead and gather up these lumblooms. And ideally, we want to get 10 of these. Now, there's tons of them around. You can see there's another cluster there, and there's actually some across the way. So we're going to turn around and head back that way. We can always come back and gather these up later, but I do want to try and find a place to establish our farm before night sets in. So we're going to keep going. We want to watch out for those noxious slime puddles. Those will damage our mech if we step on them. And we'll gather these lumbloom right across the way here as we head down the mountain. It's very helpful to get at least 1 lumbloom. If you can get more than 10, then that is good, because that'll let you send off your first 10 as a milestone shipment, which will unlock some progression through the game. And that's true for any crop. It doesn't matter which crop you send. You're going to need 10 of them for your first shipment. And so if we can gather 10 lumbloom, we can send that. If we can gather 10 carrot or 10 polyberry or 10 rabbage, all very good. Same with honey bottle. Now, any that we don't send, we can then turn into seeds and propagate and increase the numbers on. But it's helpful if we can gather enough to start farming them as well as send those first milestones, so we can make some fairly quick progression early in the game and make things a little bit easier on ourselves. All right, let's go ahead and head down the mountain here. And again, keeping our eye out for any additional resources. There seems to always be something. We've got some more rephilite here. There's plenty of rare minerals. There's lots of critters that we can, explore and experiment with later. Looks like we have a little bit more honey bottle over here, so that's good news. Don't think we've gotten quite enough honey bottle to send a shipment, but that's okay. And we're just going to keep following these railroad tracks down. All right, I don't see any more honey bottle around here, so we'll just go ahead and follow those train tracks down the hill. You can see that our clock in the top right corner of the game has said we are getting into evening. So that is a sign that we want to start finding a place to set up for the night. So our main goal for tonight is to find a place that has a good amount of resources where we can set up our farm center and find our and start building up our base. Now, ideally, what we're going to be looking for here is somewhere that has lots of copper, lots of trees, a good bit of stone, and a good bit of wide open flat terrain. And I think that this area right here at the bottom of this hill is a fantastic candidate for that. It's at the crossroads of 3 different biomes, which means we'll have easy access to all 3 biomes as we go through the game. It has a huge forest right there for all the wood we're going to need. It has easy access to copper, both in the immediate area as well as up in those hills, and more advanced resources up in the mountains behind us and over into the red area. So this is where I like to establish my first farm. It is my favorite place in the game to do so. And we can go ahead and place down our farm center down here once we get a little bit more centered on it. And that is where we will go. That is what we will do. Now, the farm center is also going to require some stone, so we are going to have to find some stone. Fortunately, with all of these mountains around, we're going to find lots and lots of stone nearby that's very easy to gather up, so we can head in basically any direction to find those items that we need. And over here, we'll see lots of stone. We'll also gather up some more copper, because we are going to need quite a lot of that. These small copper deposits don't despawn, but these large deposits do. And you can see they break into multiple chunks. That's a way that we'll be able to use them more efficiently in the future, but they will respawn sort of at 1 node per day. So after 3 days, that copper chunk will have completely regrown. Fortunately, we have several more we can draw from in the meantime if we need more copper. We've also got some more polyberries over here, so we can go ahead and harvest those. Make sure we're staying nicely equipped there. And so let's go ahead and finish our farm center. There we go. And then we need to build a resource delivery cannon as well, which we have the material for, nice and easy. So we can set that down any old place. We can go ahead and break down some of these bushes in order to get some plant fiber, and then use that to set up some burlap sacks. I'm going to set these near our farm center so they're easy to find. And this is just a place where we'll be able to store some items that we don't need to carry with us. So our stone and our copper there. And then we can set about gathering wood. Wood is going to come from mostly from these small trees. And as we break them, they'll drop a log, which we can then break in order to gather up wood. We're going to need quite a bit of wood, so we'll go ahead and gather up a whole bunch of that. Unfortunately, we will be able to purchase seeds later on to plant more trees, so we don't need to worry about deforesting the place. And again, we're right next to a massive forest, so we will never ever run out of wood at this location. There's more in that forest than we could reasonably use in the course of the entire game. We'll go ahead and harvest what's close, both to clear some land for our own usage, as well as to make sure that we're well equipped. And last but not least, we're going to want a place to sleep. Now we have 2 options for that. There's a bed that we can use once we set up a house, which we'll want to do fairly soon. But for our first night, I think it's okay to place down a small tent, which again, we can place near our farm center. And so when we're ready to sleep through the night, we can go ahead and do that. For now, though, we are going to want to start doing a little bit of farming. And in order to farm, we're going to need to till some land. At this stage of the game, all tilling is going to be done with our hoe, which is done by hand. So we can go ahead and just till out 10 plots of ground right now. and then switch to our seed bag, plant seeds, and then we'll water these seeds with our watering can. Now, seeds grow at the end of the day, so once we have watered them, then we can sort of they can sort of be forgotten and left alone. And it's worth noting that the day will end and the game will progress whether we sleep or not. We can continue working through the night if we are so inclined. I like to work in the daylight. All right, with our crops watered, night has fallen, and so let's go ahead and turn in for the night, and tomorrow we can take a look at sending off our first milestones and maybe doing a little bit more exploring. All right, day 2 has begun. And you can see that our wheat crop has grown. Now, we can harvest this by hand, but it goes much faster in our mech. So we'll go ahead and harvest that up, and that will give us 15 wheat. All right, now that day 2 is here, let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at our resource delivery cannon. This is going to establish our connection to the other colonies and give us a list of missions we can work on in order to progress through the game. It says we can't reach Earth, but we can find the other frontier colonies here. And so let's go ahead and see what they need from us. Looks like they are low on components. They won't last the winter. People are starving and they are calling for aid. So let's go ahead and help them out. Now over on the left, you can see each of the colonies has a menu entry. And we can go ahead and select one of those and see what they're asking for. So Wilderness is calling for polyberries and chromes. They need 10 of each. We have 8 and 7, so we can't help them out. Down here at Hewstone Outpost with the shattered planet and exposed core, we do have enough wheat and enough rabbage that we can send those milestones away. So we'll keep that in mind. It looks like we have 4 carrot and they need 10 of that as well. Tempest Prime, we could also help by sending off some Lumblu. Now, when we complete a milestone, now each of those deliveries will count towards our delivery counter. And you can see up here, we need 1 more delivery for our next milestone at the top center of the screen there. And that will give us this milestone, which will give us the mech depot, the sweeping strike for our spike saw, as well as other pieces of tractor mech equipment that we'll be able to craft and then equip in order to make farming easier. We'll be able to plant seeds and water them from within our mech and at a much higher rate than we can do by hand. Once we've completed this milestone, we'll unlock the next one. So let's go ahead and send off one of these milestones. We'll go ahead and do our wheat milestone here and get that sent away. And that should allow us to craft up our mech depot here. Now that's going to take a few minutes to send off, and while that's going on, I'm going to go take a look around and see if I can't find some more crops to harvest and send off. These crops are going to regrow each day, so by building our farm close to this cluster of polyberries, we'll be able to harvest these 5 polyberries every single day and use them to sort of supplement our personal farming growth, although we'll very, very quickly sort of overtake what we can harvest manually with our farming. Up here in the dense forest, we'll find our carrots, and it looks like we have a whole bunch right here, so we can just grab those straight away. 1, 2, 3 right there. It looks like we have some more right over here. 1, 2, and 3 more, so that gives us 10, which means we can send off a shipment. Let's see if we can't find a few more in order to turn into seeds so we can start farming it locally before we head back. Yes, perfect. Here we have 3 more. We'll be able to start working with some seeds as well. And there's a few more right over there. So we'll grab those up. And this is what I mean by when I said earlier that the exploration is so rewarding. Seems like right as you find these, you spot through the trees that there's a few more just right over there. So let's pop on over and grab those too. And maybe we'll find something else interesting while we're in here as well, you know, and it's pretty easy to get sort of stuck in this trap of just always wanting to go one step further and find the next thing because there's always something more to find. Over here, we've got some copper. Maybe it's a good idea for us to grab a little bit of this copper ore while we're here. But it's important to keep track of our main task. Keep that in mind. So let's head on home and see what we can do with these resources we've been gathering up. And the early milestones, every milestone really provides a good amount of progress. Some of the later ones are much more sort of piecemeal, but early on, everything is tremendously valuable. It looks like we've got more rare resources down here. This really is the best spot in the game for a farm. Like I maintain that. I've not found one that is anywhere close to as good in terms of resource availability, wide open farmable land, not a whole lot of dangerous critters around, but easy access to places that have them and have the ability to gather their spores. So this is definitely my favorite place to start. All right, now that we're back home and with that milestone completed, we can now build a mech depot. That's going to take some copper ore, some stone, and some plant oil, and we can go ahead and set that up. It looks like we are going to need to gather a little bit more stone, so let's go ahead and set up our mech depot. Any old place, again, we can go ahead and set down this mech depot and finish building it. And if we decide we don't like this place, maybe we want to move it a little closer to our farm center, we can come in here, we can use middle click to recycle it. That will recover all of those materials, and then we can go ahead and place down that mech depot somewhere else. Now, to use the mech depot, we have to interact with the crane to sort of mount our mech there, and then come on over to the terminal and use that in order to work with it. And we can see all of the different parts we've gotten and what they're going to require. These are going to take some copper wire and polyberry oil. So some of our tasks today are going to start producing those. We can also make use of the sweeping strike once we craft that up with some nickel ore and copper wire. So that gives us a to-do list. And one of the cool things we can do there is we can actually press F to create a mission or something we want to create. And that will give us a list of tools. That'll give us a sort of mission objective that we want to work on. Let's head on over to our resource delivery cannon and take a look at our next objectives and milestone. And whenever we complete a milestone, we'll get a sort of summary of what we get for it. So we'll be able to see all the things we unlocked. And now we can see that we need 3 more deliveries for our next milestone, which will give us the sawmill and the mineral crusher. These will allow us to take those large chunks of items, either the logs or the large chunks of rock or copper, and process them more efficiently. It's also going to give us a farm size area upgrade, the ability to plow from our mech, as well as several key modifications to our mech, like inventory capacity and movement speed. So that's another major one we want to do, and we can start sending off some of these shipments straight away to start working towards that. In the meantime, though, we also want to start building up our farm, and one of the things we're going to need to do are set up some machines. Now, we can place these down any old place, so we can build, for example, our oil press right here, and then I noticed we're going to need some polyberry oil, so we can start making some polyberry oil right there, and that will start producing it. Now, you'll notice if we mouse over this machine, it says it's missing a roof. It has increased in efficiency if we can put a roof over it. So this is going to work better if it's in a building, and we can sort of cheese this a little bit by placing a wall right behind it and then placing a roof directly over top of it like so. And that should give us... And so with that roof in place, that'll give us the increased efficiency like it's inside of a building, and we can use that for just for now until we build a proper sort of structure for it. And that's going to be one of the things I want to work on next. I'm going to go gather some stone because for our structure, we're going to use a foundation, and we don't have quite enough stone. But one of the cool things is we can actually build this up even before we do all of that. And so what I'm going to do is start laying down some foundations here, and I think this is going to be 4 wide. And right now we'll probably do 4 by 4. And you'll see that I'm placing these even though I don't have the material to craft them. And what that's going to let me do is sort of get the layout for my building and a sense for its scope and size before I need to work with it. I'm going to put these posts at each of the 4 corners. And I'm actually going to make this double tall so that we can operate within the building while we're in our mech. And then we're going to put some roofs on this in order to enclose the buildings that we need. We're going to create a sort of shed here like this, or a shelter. They'll allow any structures we build within it to benefit from those increased efficiencies. Then we can switch over to a flat roof or... All right, and with our shed foundation sort of laid out, we can go ahead and start gathering up the materials for it. We're going to need a ton of stone, both for the foundation and the roof. We're going to need some hardwood for those posts at the corners, and that's going to come from larger trees like those ones there in the middle. We're going to need a load of wood for the roof as well. Let's start with stone for the foundation, and we're just going to come on over here and break rocks until we filled our inventory, which should just take a couple of seconds. All right, I've just about filled our inventory with rocks, so let's head on back and see if we can't get this foundation laid out. And we can also start putting pieces into the roof. Now, this game does have a physics system with building, so we can't fully finish the roof until we have created these corner posts. So we're going to have to gather the wood for that next. We can go ahead and press E to contribute resources to any holograms, or hold E to simply place everything we've got. So let's go ahead and get all of these done. Like so. Now you'll notice that some of these holograms look a little different. That's because we've actually contributed the wood to them. I want to demonstrate though, if we try and build this before it's supported, it will break. We will get those resources back, but that hologram will be gone. So we need to gather up the hardwood that we're going to need for those corner posts first. And again, the hardwood comes from large trees. There are going to be tons of these all around the map, but these ones are quite close to home. So we can start here with one of these spire pot trees. They're a little bit slower to break and a little bit harder to gather materials from, but it's not too bad really. And we don't need fortunately, we don't need very much hardwood. I think 2 trees should give us all we need for this particular construction. And we'll also get a little bit of normal wood out of these trees as well. Not very much, but normal wood is mostly going to come from the smaller trees. But yeah, 16 hardwood should be plenty for us. And then we can harvest those smaller trees for the wood for the roof. And so once again, we'll simply come over to these corner posts, build them from the ground up so that they are supported. And now that that's done, we can go ahead and start building the roof out from that post without issue. All right, I'm going to gather up the rest of the materials we need and finish getting this constructed. And we'll jump ahead to when it is done. All right, and that is a shed all complete. I like using the double high walls there so that our mech can walk into it side to side. And I also think that the flattened center on the roof looks nice. So this is going to be a great place for us to build, and we can always extend this out in any direction as we'll need more space, and we eventually will. Now we have a couple of things we need to do from here. One of the highest priority ones is going to be to build some seed extractors. This is going to be made from wood and copper ore, and I happen to have some of those already in place. So I'm going to go ahead and place down 3 of these and press Control to go into free build mode so that they can be pointing their sort of output pipes all in the same sort of spot like that. And looks like we're a little bit short on wood there. But then in the center of those, I'm going to place a burlap sack. Just gotta find where the thing is blue. There we go. And we can use these seed extractors to take the crops we've made and turn them into seeds. So I'm going to go ahead and start crafting some wheat seeds in one and some polyberry seeds in another. And they have a queue, so we can go ahead and stack these up. So we can go ahead and place some rabbage seeds or some carrot seeds or chromase seeds, whatever we need. I want to make sure that I leave enough of each resource to send off the milestones that I need to. Otherwise, I can go ahead and stack up some of these without too much concern. Now I wanted to build now we can place these seed extractors out in the open, but if they're underneath a roof, they're going to get a huge efficiency increase, about 50%. And we can see this over here at our oil press. Remember, we queued up five polyberry oils and we got 7 out of it. So that was a huge benefit to us in order to get those. Now I do want to send off the rest of these milestones before I commit too many seeds to things. So let's go ahead and see what we can do there. It looks like we can send off 10 rabbage and 10 carrot. No problem. So let's go ahead and send off the rabbage real quick. And then these resource delivery milestones only take a couple of minutes to send off, and they're actually really cool to watch. If you haven't seen one, the resource cannon actually loads up your shipment, points it at the planet that it's going to, and then fires it to that planet, which is really cool. I love the animation that they did there. Overall, they've done a really good job making this game feel very satisfying. So it feels good to play in that way. Looks like we need one more milestone, which fortunately we can send off our carrot here with no trouble at all. Let's go ahead and get that launched, and that will unlock our next milestone, our next set of buildables, and our next set of upgrades. All right, and with that, we have access to the sawmill and mineral crusher, which are two new buildings we're going to want to build, and we're going to want to set these up straight away. These are also going to benefit from being indoors, so we're going to place them inside of our shed here, and you can see that these are quite a bit larger, so they're going to take up a ton of space. It looks like we're a little bit short on our resources there, so let's go ahead and gather up a little bit more copper ore. All right, now going to build these, it looks like they're going to be made from copper ore and stone. So let's go ahead and build the mineral crusher first, because that will allow us to more efficiently gather up those materials. So we can go ahead and set that up. It looks like we're going to be 2 copper ore short. So let's pop up here and gather up some copper ore. We can gather the 2 copper ore we need very quickly from these small deposits, just like so. And then for the large one, now that we're building the mineral cluster, now that we have the mineral crusher, we can go ahead and take these large chunks back, and we'll be able to use those to more efficiently gather resources from these items. So remember, each of these large chunks, when we broke them sort of by hand, gave us 4 copper ore. If we go ahead and load them in here, place them into our mineral crusher, and they will get ground up. And let's see how much copper each one produces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like we got 12 from that first chunk. So we tripled the amount of copper we got by using the mineral crusher under a roof for increased efficiency. We got 9 from that one. So that efficiency bonus isn't sort of universal, but we were able to get so much more materials out of those pieces. And we can do this with stone or the other metal types as well. So we need to find, we can continue gathering stone by hand from the small places like this, which is great. But if we need more, if we can find one of these big rocks, then when we break that, that'll give us the large stone chunks. And we can take those home and process them much more efficiently. The sawmill will do a similar thing with logs. It looks like our seed makers are working hard. If we open the burlap sack, we can see all the seeds we got there. Now, the last thing we're going to need for our now, remember, all of this was working towards building some mech upgrades. And if we take a look at that mission, you can see we're still missing copper wire. That's going to be made in an assembler. So let's set down our assembler indoors as well and go and craft some copper wire. Now, unfortunately, that did use all of our remaining copper, so we don't have the copper ore we needed anymore. But the good news is we have another one of these copper chunks as well as some small pieces up here, and then there's plenty more copper in the surrounding area as well. All right, so we can craft up some copper wire there, and that will give us all of the copper wire and copper ore we need to craft some of these mech upgrades. So let's go ahead and I think we are going to start with an irrigation hose and a seed shooter, and we don't quite have enough resources for the resource vacuum or the sprout cannon. We'll want those very soon, but for now we can start with just the 2 that we have, and we can go into our empty tool slots and go ahead and equip those. So we'll equip our seed shooter and our irrigation hose, and we have 2 more slots, 2 more tools to craft, so it will work out for us in that way. Now that we have those equipped, we can use our scroll wheel within our mech to change our weapon. And let's go ahead and switch to our seed shooter and gather up all of the items out of this burlap sack. And let's plant our 10 wheat seeds that we have over here into our crop. Now the seed shooter is super satisfying to use, and we can simply plant those, and then we can water them very quickly with our irrigation hose. Now, the irrigation hose does have a limited amount of capacity. When we need more water, we can go use the resource vacuum on the lake. That's the easy way to do it. Or we can simply walk in and our mech will slowly and passively refill it. Now you can see that evening is setting in. So before we turn in, we're going to place down a few more farm plots here so that we can start farming some of our other crops as well. All right, so we've got our wheat field. We can do a small polyberry field here, a small carrot field, and a small lum bloom field. And I think that's all the seeds we have. Let's go ahead and water those. And then I think that that is a good place for us to turn in for the night. We've got a couple of upgrades done. We've got some new crops that will start growing in the morning. So let's go ahead and sleep. Now, each crop has a different growing time. So our wheat grows in one night, which means that the wheat we had planted yesterday is ready for harvest today. And we can start using that to propagate out some more seeds. So we can take this 10 wheat and go turn it into seeds straight away. But the rest of our crops aren't done growing yet. So we can water those real quick, just take care of those chores. Go ahead and water this wheat field because we're going to want to replant that as well. But head back up to our seed makers to process this wheat. But I think this is actually where we are going to leave it for today. We've covered all of the major systems, progression by sending off milestones, how to set up a farm, how to create a covered structure to increase the efficiency of your materials. And there's a few more that we'll want to talk about. We'll want to build our first home, our first proper farm, and start setting this place up into something that's a little bit more interesting, a little bit prettier, and also do some more exploring of the map. So that's something we will save for our next episode. For now, though, I think we're going to call it here. I'd like to thank you guys for spending a few minutes with me here in the world of Lightyear Frontier. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. Leave a like if you have and subscribe if you'd like to see more. My name is Dakoba, and I hope you have an epic day. I will see you soon.